Hello Neverwinter. It has been quite a while since I put one of these out. Some of you may remember that back in the day I used to run a Warlock healer quite a lot. I was a shield lock, which I enjoyed playing quite a lot. And unfortunately that dropped off a little bit. Because the Warlock healer was in a very bad place for quite a while, but it has recently been updated to be much more viable in content. So I thought I'd brush it off and get it all fixed up and put out a little build for everyone to see. This build is going to be pretty much identical for a hot or a shielder, but I will focus on the shielder for now and just take you through a few of the decisions that I've decided to make for this one. This is a raptor build, so under group content we would have 90% power, crit strike and severity is capped. In a group our outgoing healing will cap, and we are running the divine aegis for some additional outgoing healing, which is capable of taking you over your natural cap, so we'd be looking pretty good there as well. Okay, so obviously the best shielder in the game is the Pally. The best outright healer is the Cleric. The best buffer debuffer is the Bard. And then what you've got is the Warlock, which is pretty good at everything, but not necessarily the best. I do happen to enjoy the playstyle more than I enjoy the Cleric's playstyle or the Pally's playstyle though, so for me personally this is my favourite healer. I've not on any level got to grips with the Bard. That is a tricky class to play. So we'll get straight into the equipment. We are stacking a high level of regeneration for this. We've got this helm from MTOS. We've got these arms from Mad Layer of the Dragon, Master version, which is increasing our maximum Soulweave. It's not as high a value as the ones from Moon Dancer, wherever those are. Yeah, there we go. Those give us an additional 5% on top. But I think the trade-off with the outgoing healing and the forte is probably worth it. Don't quote me on that. It might be worth having a little bit of a live action sort of comparison. There's not really any content that's challenging enough though to worry too much about min-maxing to that level, I don't think. And then we've got these boots from Imperial Citadel, which give us even more regeneration. Now there are boots from Moon Dancer which give you 20% at all times, I believe, for the regeneration, which I don't actually have, but as far as I'm aware those boots also do not stack with this helm. So by using this helm and these boots we end up with 30% faster regeneration rather than just the 20% we would get from using the Moon Dancer boots. So this is going to be it's not necessarily a full debuff build, but it is got enough buffs on it to be incredibly useful without sacrificing any of the healing power. We run the Marylith set. This is basically an updated version of the Apocalypse set. Which causes the enemy to take increased damage 1% for 5 seconds, stack up to 5 times, 5% increased damage to the enemy activated on a critical attack. Now this could be run by DPS. It was run by DPS for a little while because it was happened to be the highest item level set at the time. It's more useful on a healer now because obviously the DPS will be running a Mastercraft set or something similar to that. Maybe even the Detector set if they need the extra stats. This set won't usually be useful on a tank because tanks tend not to have enough crit strike to actually proc this or give it any time of uptime. If you're in the debuff set on a tank, you'd usually run the Vistani set. It'd be nice for them to, if and when they come up with an updated version of that, it would be incredibly useful. This is a ring from Moondancer. I'm stacking stamina regeneration on these, on the jewels. Stamina regeneration used to have some interplay with the Warlock Soulweaver. I don't know if it still does, but we are running, the pants that we're running depend on having above 75% stamina, so it's just generally useful to have relatively high stamina regen on all classes really, if you can get away with it. This is the best debuff chest piece in the game. It is absolutely a huge debuff, and all you need to do to activate it is be standing close to the boss. It is really a no-brainer to run this if you can do. It will help out immensely in runs. You just got to be very careful if you're running with a fighter tank that you don't stand so close that you are stood in the KV if they happen to be running KV, because there's nothing that's going to piss your tank off more than the healer getting into the KV. It is an absolute nightmare for threat. We've already gone over these. Some actual useful stats for once. It's feels like they might be learning. This is a power ring. This is available from Vorkath's Moon, I think, from the store there, campaign store. This can be upgraded and refined. I don't know if it's worth going through the effort to do that. You do get some extra stats. I mean, it does go up to mythic. You get some extra item levels, some extra stats, but it's not necessary exactly because we're running it for that power. We don't even necessarily need all of this power either, so I might do some more tweaking in the future. We do have an abundance of stats for this healer currently, so there's room to tweak basically. This is the second part of the Marylith set, of course. This is another shirt from Moondancer. They've got some really good healing gear from Moondancer, to be fair. Not the most useful ratings, but really nice effect on it. Now, although these are both called Graceful Harmony, these two do in fact stack, so don't worry about that. This is the upgraded Blast Scepter. It's just a really good debuff artifact. Obviously you'll be having to run whatever the group wants you to run, but generally this is one that a healer would be running, so you know, good stuff. if you watch my tank video, I did explain about these. These will be the best sort of weapons to run on the healer if you're not running something like the Mastercraft. These are actually better on a personal level than the Mastercraft, provided you're in a situation where they will all proc. Obviously, these are single target weapons basically. You don't get the extra nice bonuses if you've got multiple enemies around. So there are situations where you'd want to switch to something else, like these MDM weapons, because obviously they have the static non-ramping up stats on them. Even in that situation though, with these particular ones, you'd still get that 5%. So yeah, basically either or really, and then Masterwork's always an option, although we've generally moved away from Masterwork now that we're so much more powerful than any of the content that we have to run. We've already gone over these boots. So what I've done here is just put in a few stamina regen artifacts. Basically the ratings are so close to cap that we don't actually need any more ratings. I mean, we're even over cap on the crit strike. Might have to do a bit of tweaking to try and bring that down, maybe switch around some insignias. And we are running these crit strike trousers, which again we don't necessarily actually need, so we could switch those out for something else as well. Maybe some AP gain pants. Theoretically we could even put those in for the power and then switch the ring out for something else. And go for some power pants, put the grace ring in, or something similar. Maybe one of these outgoing healing rings, either from MGR or from Demon Web Pits. There's a lot of flexibility in healer builds at the minute, basically. But yeah, so this one, very good sort of debuff potential here without sacrificing any of your healing. Ability points, charisma, wisdom. And I might even think twice about charisma here. I think dexterity might be even more useful. But we're not exactly hitting for crit sev either, so I mean, personal choice I suppose. Wisdom being the main healer stat though, so definitely into wisdom. Enhancements, enchantments. When I'm able on a DPS or a healer character, I'll always stack up these awareness gems, due to awareness just being a much more useful damage resistance stat in general. Obviously it's the direct counter to combat advantage damage. And in all trials, generally in all trials, a boss will always have combat advantage on you, and awareness acts as the counter to that damage. Now I put a Devil's Precision in here, which almost feels like a waste, because obviously it's not like we're using accuracy. And we don't necessarily need 90% accurate, 90% critical strike either, but I've got it, so why not? Makes the stats look nice. You might want to opt for something like a AP gain These corrupt black ice is still incredibly useful in the right circumstances, and they are still somewhat bugged, so they remain at 0 and keep on working, which is lovely. White Dragon Glyph is kind of underappreciated potentially. If you read the little thing there, it's saying that you can increase your healing by 10%. Now I haven't actually been able to test whether this actually works, so I'm just taking it on faith that it does what it says it does at the minute. But alternatively, you could put in some AP gain again. I am running the Celestial Divine Aegis here, mainly for the increase in the outgoing healing. It procs quite interestingly. Every tick will proc it up by the amount of allies that are being healed, if that makes sense. Companions count, these dummies count, so you can get that procced up just incredibly fast. There we go, already up to 20. And that puts a shield on you, and it puts a shield onto the person who you are healing, so it's quite nice. Revitalize does also count. It doesn't count on these dummies because these dummies don't get healed by Revitalize, but it will count on other players. It also doesn't count on companions because apparently Revitalize also doesn't heal companions. And obviously Divine Aegis doesn't trigger when you heal yourself. One thing I have noticed though is that Vampiric Embrace, and I did test this out elsewhere on actual players, as far as Divine Aegis is concerned, Vampiric Embrace is not a heal for some reason. So Vampiric Embrace, which is our most reliable and consistent heal, does not actually proc the Divine Aegis, which is a bit of a ball ache really. That's something they should definitely be looking at. I did also investigate the other healing one we've got, the Celestial Refugilant Fortification. Now and this is absolutely ridiculous given the Warlock class. If we shield ourselves, we will get a stack of Refugilant Fortification. If we use our Soul Reconstruction, we will get a stack of Refugilant Fortification. However, bear in mind this is intended to proc off single target heals. If we use our Soul Reconstruction, our main heal, you know, our class feature heal, it won't proc, which unfortunately makes this makes this particular enchantment somewhat useless. Although, I mean, theoretically it could be useful. I don't know. If you can isolate the tank in amidst everything, you could throw it on them and give them a nice little damage resistance buff. But to be perfectly honest, without the reliability of the our class feature heal there, I don't see it as being particularly useful, unfortunately, because it has the potential to be quite useful. Yeah, so Divine Aegis, it gives us just a little bit extra. We can get up to a point where we can, you know, nearly full shield ourselves or fully shield others. Just a nice extra little bump basically, and of course the outgoing healing. Buffs wise, Wildstorm Elixir, outgoing healing, food from the stronghold, flask of potency, squash soup. All relatively cheap apart from the squash soup. Like I say, you could conceivably change that to something else. It doesn't. You don't need 90% crit strike. You don't. You don't need 90s across the board for your stats, really. Powers wise, basically we only really need to use 2 of our heals. Vampiric Embrace you tend to keep on because it's the only heal we've got which will automatically heal everybody within range. It is incredibly powerful. It's also incredibly expensive. You don't want to be spamming this, and it has the quite big downside that you need to be able to target an enemy for it to actually work. But as you can see, if you're spamming this, your divinity will be gone in, or Soulweaver in fact, will be gone in absolutely no time. So it's definitely not something just to keep bashing away at. You still need to have, even with the amount of regen we've got on this, you still need to be a bit sensible with how you're, how often you're healing. Just so you got a bit of resource management. Obviously, being the Warlock, we've got a feat which, when we attack, it helps us. It makes us regenerate Soul faster. So we do need to be attacking as well. We also need to be attacking to proc the Marrowless set. This one here, Essence of Power. But yeah, basically we only really need 2 heals. It's useful to have this one down, the old Soulstorm, because that'll tick up your Divine Aegis, and it's a relatively strong heal as well, so it'll just pop the shields on, HP will get healed up behind it, your Divine Aegis procs, just it's a useful one to have. But there are going to be situations where it's a bit too fast moving, so you might want to have your Revitalize on instead. The shields won't be quite as high with Revitalize normally because the magnitude gets spread out amongst the people within it. But this is also our cleanse. We didn't used to, well, what did I think our cleanse used to be on Vampiric Embrace. And they moved the cleanse from Vampiric Embrace onto Revitalize, which I'm not entirely sure about. I can see why they did it though. It's probably something to do with the way that MGR works. If you cleanse in MGR at the wrong time, a load of mechanics go off and it causes a lot of problems. So if you got something that's going to automatically hit everybody and that's going to be like the main heal for the class, they probably need to take the cleanse off so that it was more controllable. That makes sense. Yeah, so basically this effectively means we have a spare power. Like I like to run Pillar of Power sometimes. It's not all that useful. I mean, it can be quite good for you yourself. In some trials where everyone's grouped up and they remain grouped up for a while, it can be quite useful. Warlock's Bargain can be useful. I prefer to rely on just managing the Soul Weave rather than having to use this though. Incidentally, using this will actually consume the bubble daily. because it consumes your soul spark. So you're going to want to be, if you are using that one, you're going to want to be careful when you use it, and probably not use it when that particular daily's up, because you will cancel it out. But you know, sometimes Arms of Hadar can be quite useful for its knockdown function, and Blade of Vanquished Armies can be quite useful as well. Throw it on the tank, help them keep aggro if they're struggling. I've got Shadow Walk equipped here. It's got some nice little stats. In a group with only one healer, I would advise using this one. If you're in a trial situation, you should put Borrowed Spirit on, just for additional Soulweave, basically. It's less needed now that we have the all this regeneration gear, but it is just nice not to worry too much about it. Soul Bond, just a automatic heal, basically. I mean, we don't we don't actually have all that many useful class features, unfortunately. Yeah, Dark. I mean, you're a healer. How often are you going to actually kill anything? Dark One's Blessing is relatively useless, unfortunately. You certainly don't need to be doing more damage. Although it might be worth testing that, because sometimes the game thinks that damage is the same as healing. I know I tested the Neverwinter Night one time, and whatever damage bonus that is acting upon does actually increase your outgoing healing. I'm not entirely sure what mechanic is behind that though. Yeah, so this bottom row, in general, we're not going to be stood still and not healing. Yeah, we're generally not going to be not healing long enough for this to be anywhere near as useful as the Essence of Power. Yeah, I've never really been a fan of these top row ones. Oversoul's another one that would bear testing out and see whether the damage increase effect actually increases your healing as well. Maybe I'll get around to doing that one day. From the Brink is particularly useful. We don't generally allow people to get below 15% HP, but having that... Oh, sorry. We don't generally let them get down below 25% HP, but when they do, the extra 15% healing is very, very useful. And then obviously these two are the HOTS or the shields. And there's situations where you could be looking at using both, basically. If you are in a trial and there's a pally there, and they happen to be a good pally who can shield a lot, you might as well switch to the HOT. If there is no pally but there is a cleric, put your shields on. The shields are very meta at the minute. They are significantly stronger than HOT alone, unfortunately, because, well, they act as a significantly greater health pool, basically. Daily wise, both of these are good. I actually prefer Soul Pact, because with Soul Pact you don't need to convince the group to stand in the bloody bubble. It's a much bigger heal. You don't get that heal over time effect, but you do get a nice bit of damage resistance. Yeah, I tend to think that Soul Pact is just more reliable in general, really. Okay, boon wise, I'm actually working on getting one more boon so I can bump that 40 up by 1%. But we'll see how that goes, hopefully that'll be soon. I'm actually running the same set of master boons that I would run on a DPS. Blessed Advantage, Blessed Resilience, these proc off self heals, shit, these proc off loads of stuff. And it's really good master boons. I don't know if they're bugged, they're planning on fixing them or what. These are just worth running on all your tunes though. Enhanced application seems to proc quite a lot on a healer for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. Life lessons. Basically, these 5 are just the best master boons to run, and they are functionally, actively better than these second tier ones or advanced tier ones. So yeah, secure the master boons and then just fill in basically whatever you want down here. I always go for movement speed. Movement speed is just one of the most powerful stats you can actually have in this game. Obviously our power, crit save, crit strike. We don't need combat advantage, we don't need accuracy. Power in here. Healers always craving power. Awareness in here for the same reason I stated before. It's just the best defensive stat we've got. Revive Sickness Boon. If you're confident you're not going to die, you might as well put the movement speed on. This group heal potion bonus has been nerfed to hell, so that's not particularly useful anymore, unfortunately. Companion wise, you're going to want to be running some form of support companion. Obviously we're running the flapjack here, that gives the entire group an extra 5% combat advantage. Your DPS will be incredibly happy if you run something like this one. Or something like the tutor. Or the portobello. Portobello is a very popular one as well. I don't actually have the portobello, but I am saving up, so hopefully we'll have that one soon. You know, Black Death Scorpion's another popular one. Or a Spine Devil, or some type of Minotaur. Basically, some form of support companion is what people will be asking you to run. Obviously we've got the Raptor in here. Raptor still probably the best, or one of the best equips for a healer in particular, due to healers generally struggling more to get power. Obviously the golden bootlight is quite a pricey one to get hold of, unfortunately, but there are other things that give outgoing healing that you can get hold of. I think this polar bear is quite pricey as well these days. But they are around, there are things, there are ways and means. Crit strike power, yeah, power outgoing healing, that's what you're looking for really. These ones are from Wild Space again. I think this was Moon Vokath campaign store as well, the Master Imperial Citadel stuff. It's nice that they're finally putting out some useful companion gear. The enhancement. Again, if you're in a trial, if you're in endgame, they're going to be wanting you to run some form of debuff. If you're not, and that doesn't concern you, then if you put something like Revigorate on, you can get yourself an extra 7.5% outgoing healing. Or any stat you want, really. Now, I was of two minds of what to really do with these companion bonuses, mount bonuses. Obviously, I've double stacked Demender's Covenant. This was some extra stats, put the Gladiator's Guile on because we love the movement speed. And obviously the stam regen if we run out of stamina. Shepherd's Devotion, still a pretty powerful one. Quite useful for mitigating and dodging damage, especially if you use Soul Pack over the bubble. Because obviously with Soul Pack people can still move around, they can dodge, the extra movement speed comes in handy. Now I don't really know how much this procs the ally's resilience on a healer. Obviously it's designed more to be used on a tank because the tank gets hit a lot more. But I figure every little helps. There wasn't really anything else that would have been appropriate. We don't need the cooldowns from the tacticians or anything like that. We don't need the motivation. We're a frickin' healer, so we don't really need the perseverance if we were on the ball. And it wasn't worth slotting an execution. It's just for some crit strike and crit stab. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a few more sort of healer oriented bonuses really. Combat power, again, the group is going to want you to be running some form of debuff, so Pegasus, Swarm's usually a tank one, Eline's also usually a tank one in a trial, Fire Archon, maybe. T-Rex is another popular healer one as well. Basically some form of debuff mount. Pegasus is a very useful one though, because it is like a group buff. Equip power. Again, the group will want you to be running some sort of aura. Auras that healers run tend to be Mystic Aura or Runic Aura. Tanks tend to run Pack Tactics. I believe Mystic Aura is quite expensive at the minute. Comes from the Myconid Boulette. Although a lot of the account wide is quite expensive, but a lot of singles are now on the market after Summerfest. Yeah, there we go. Singles relatively cheap. Oh, the account wide are quite cheap as well. This one got up to 3 mil not too long ago. It's only a 3 slot, but it does have an incredibly useful equip power. Who knows, they might release a new one, but if you happen to have the resources, it's definitely worth picking one of those up for your healer. Right, okay, that is the healer build. It's the same on the hot side. Basically, you just swap that around. And again, you get these little Divine Aegis procs. And you can still run your at-will shield. So even on the hot side, you do still have the capacity to do some shielding, which is quite nice. But yeah, that's it basically. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you like a lot of videos, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take it easy.